Hey everyone, we're so excited to talk to Lee Dumas today. He is the host of the award-winning podcast, Entrepreneurs on Fire.
Guys, we have looked up to John for years, and he's just amazing with his productivity, guys. He's been able to accomplish more than anybody else in his space. If you say the name JLD, John Lee Dumas, everybody knows him in the podcast and in the entrepreneur realm because of what he's been able to do. So excited to talk to him, guys, and take some great information away from this interview today. So stay tuned.
And learn some of his productivity hacks.
John, thank you so much for jumping on here today. We greatly appreciate your time and are so excited for diving into what you are amazing at. Productivity!
Productivity master. Yes. So
they do call me the productivity master for a reason. It's one of my 3 tenets in life, and I will never change.
That's awesome. So just to give people, like, you really don't need an introduction. You've been doing this amazing podcast for years, but you started with a daily podcast for 8 years, right? It was 8 years. How did you set that pace and how did you keep it going for that long?
Well, I can tell you, I had a lot of doubters at the beginning. People told me this can't be done. And these are people, by the way, that were the top of the podcasting industry. The podcast answer man, Cliff Ravenscraft, Jamie Masters, the eventual millionaire. She was my mentor. He was my mastermind leader. And they said, do not do a daily podcast. You'll get burnt out. Your guests, you will not be able to find enough guests and they'll get burnt out. Your listeners will get burnt out. Everybody's going to get burnt out. Don't do it. And I said, you know what? If the best people in the industry are telling me it can't be done and I find a way to do it, isn't that quite an opportunity? And that was really kind of cool for me. So I gritted my teeth. I said, you know what? I know it's going to be a grind at first because I don't have systems. I don't have tools. I don't have a team. I don't have automation, but that will come in time. So honestly, for a year, 2 years, it was all about grinding it out. I honestly wasn't very productive all the time because I didn't know what being productive was for that type of business. I had to figure it out step by step. I had to do the thing. I had to put in the reps. But every single day, I documented my process. I found a little piece I could do a little bit better, a little bit quicker, a little more leverage, a little more scale. And then over time, I built the team. I built the systems. I built the automations. I became unbelievably productive. So again, this wasn't overnight, but over years, I was able to get to the point where now, as I'm sitting here 10 years into Entrepreneurs on Fire, 3,700 episodes, I do a 7-day-a-week podcast, 1 day per week, 4 days per month. I work to do a daily podcast because every single Thursday, I do 7 to 8 interviews for Entrepreneurs on Fire. And that's it. I don't do any work for the show except for that 1 day per week. So 4 days a month, I am running a multi-million-dollar podcast that is served 365 days a year.
That is awesome. I love it. John, and this is amazing. So you really have honed in on the skill set of bringing it to systems, being able to do it, and where you are right now, which is most people think it's an overnight success, but it's not. It's 10 years in the grind doing it. What was that drove you in the beginning? Was it, and I know you mentioned other people, professionals, people at the top of their game are telling you it can't be done. What would you say the one thing that kind of drove you to, I'm going to do this no matter what it takes? What was that?
Because honestly, it was something that I wanted to exist in the world. As a podcast listener, I was like, where's the daily podcast interviewing entrepreneurs? I would listen to that show. Honestly, like I found a void in the marketplace. I found something that was being underserved. There was a bunch of good podcasts interviewing entrepreneurs, but they were 1 day per month. And I liked those shows, but I hated having to wait a whole week, just like with Game of Thrones right now. It's like, I hate having to wait a week for the next episode to come live because I want to binge that. That's why when Netflix came out, and they would just release the entire season all at once, everybody loved that because nobody wants to wait. I mean, I get why they do it, but I want to watch as many shows as I want to watch. It's like, let's do this. So I wanted that daily podcast. And I said, hey, Gandhi once said, be the change you want to see in the world. So I took his advice and here we are.
I love it. I love it. Such
I-
great
I
information.
wanted to ask you, so we're talking to people who are in a reselling side hustle, or they want to start a side hustle, or they have the best intentions. What would you tell somebody who might struggle? They have these intentions, they want to do this, but what are some of the struggles that you see, and how do they get past those?
Here's the problem with what 99% of those individuals who are struggling are doing. They're seeing other people doing a side hustle or something like that are having success, and they copy that person. Nobody wants a pale, weak imitation of somebody else. They want the true, authentic, genuine version of you. So if you can listen to this next sentence I'm about to share and truly live it for what it means for you, you will win, not overnight, but over time, just continuing to implement this process. And that is, become the number one solution to a real problem in this world. That sentence sounds simple, but if you unpack it, there's so much there. You need to become not a solution, the number one solution, not just to a problem, to a real problem in this world, to a real pain point. And if you become the number one solution to a real problem in this world, it's only a matter of time, because people will beat a path to the doorstep of the number one solution to a real problem, and they will ignore the second best solution to infinity. So if you can truly identify a problem that you can become the best solution to, and that problem is a real problem, a real pain point, you are going to win.
Yeah.
So powerful. And
Yeah.
for you, it was that one thing that you wanted, and you knew other entrepreneurs wanted the same thing. So I love it.
Yes.
I totally love it.
I think it's amazing that you've been able to take all your work and batch it into a couple of days a month. Like, I love batching. Like, he doesn't do it as much. I love it. I think it's great.
It's
But
great.
what is something that could help somebody that struggles for time? Like, they're pulled in so many different directions. How do they find the focus and the time in their schedule?
Listen, it's not easy. And I'm not going to lie. We all have such busy lives. I mean, I'm looking at those gorgeous kids right over your right shoulder there. I mean, those kids take time, and they are worth all the time they take. And I mean, they deserve the time that you give to them. And people have jobs and families and responsibilities. And I get it. And I get it. And I get it. It's not easy. Now, the problem is you've dug yourself in this hole. Now, I don't mean you've dug yourself into a hole because, like, oh, you never should have had kids or started. No, that's not the hole I'm talking about. The hole I'm talking about is that you've created a life that is necessitating that you have that 9 to 5 job, or for some people, 7 to 6 job that is just sucking your soul because you have to do it, and you're getting home and you're tired and you're don't have the energy. Listen, a lot of you have dug yourself that hole. Let's just be honest. It's a reality check. I've been in that hole before, so I know that you can get out of it because I've experienced that hole for sure. I've lived that hole in multiple different careers, by the way. But there is a way out, and it's not going to be easy, because if it was easy, everybody would be doing it. But if you do really take these tenets we're talking about when it comes to productivity, and you say, hey, how can I get more done in an hour than some people do in a day? That's where you can start having a chance. I call it focus. If you follow one course until success, because so many people who struggle for time, it's because they have a million things they want to do. They have, let's just not even be dramatic, like a million. They have six things that they want to do, and they're divided by those 6 things. They're putting little efforts into these 6 things, and they're not moving much forward because everything's divided by 6. Well, what if everything was only divided by 1? What if you put an hour into one thing that was your sole focus? Now you're going to make impact. You're going to make progress. And that is so critical. And it's going to take what we call, the 5 to 9, which is the 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. Or for some people, the 7 to 12. It's going to take some of those nights that you're going to have to give. You have to give that extra to get that ball rolling, because getting that ball rolling initially, that's the hardest part, is that initial traction, that initial momentum. And then things start to work, because then eventually, if you can get that ball rolling a little bit and then a little bit more, then all of a sudden, which it happened to you two at one point, you look at each other, you're like, we're making as much in our side hustle as we are in our actual job. Now you can walk away from that job, and now you all of a sudden have all day to do that thing, to just focus. And that's how it becomes exponential and compounds the right way. So it's not going to be easy, but if you focus on one thing and it's delayed gratification, it's going to suck now, but guess what? There's going to be a time that you're sitting in Puerto Rico and your legs are going to be kicked up, and it's your one day a month you're doing interviews on other shows, and you only have 4 days a month you're interviewing other people for your show, and you have 25 days per month to do essentially whatever you want to do, and you're making multiple $1 million a year. Now that's my story right now, and it took me years to get here, but let me tell you, it was worth it.
Yeah.
That is awesome. And that's so powerful. I don't know how many times, and I don't know if you're probably not the one who came up with the focus, follow one course until success, but I've quoted you every time I say it. I say, this is where I've heard this from, is John. John is known for this. So I absolutely love that. And it's really focusing until you get the success.
Well, that was your problem forever. Like, how many different things can we think about and do? And you're so excited about all the different things, and then nothing.
Because it's fun for an entrepreneur. It's
Yeah.
fun
It
for
is
us to
fun.
think of new ideas, but we're horrible about the follow through. And yet you summed it up right there with focus. So I absolutely love it. Such amazing advice.
I have a question of, have you always been structured? Because you're a very structured person, and that's kind of how you do your day. But is that come natural to you, or is it something you've learned? And if somebody is very all over the place, how do they learn that skill?
Listen, it did come from time. It was not something I was born with. It wasn't something that I was as a child. I was, as haphazard and all over the place as most kids are, for sure. But, when I got into the Army, it kind of became a life or death thing. And that's actually not being dramatic, because when I was in the Army, I went to war for 13 months in Iraq. I was a tank platoon leader in charge of 16 men, 4 tanks, getting shot at every single day. It's like, if you weren't disciplined, if you weren't focused, if you weren't really, making sure of the details, you were putting yourself and your soldiers at risk. So I was forced to do that. And then I saw the benefits of it. And I can remember when, years and years later, when I became an entrepreneur, and I remember just putting those same practices that I learned in the military to entrepreneurship, because it was so obvious. And everybody was like, what are you doing? This is revolutionary. And I'm like, actually, it's just kind of common sense to me, because it's what I've been doing for a long time because of my military training. But nobody was doing it in the entrepreneurial world because they hadn't had that background. And so it put me leaps and bounds ahead of people, because I had learned that at a young age, 21, 22, 23 years old, literally under fire, so to speak. So it can be learned. I learned it, and it's a step-by-step process at a time. I actually will give a shameless plug. The Mastery Journal. The Mastery Journal
right here
is all about mastering productivity, discipline, and focus. And I love the fact that's within arm's reach for you, because obviously it's something that you excel in, but that you can only improve, because all we can do is improve. And it's just so exciting that if you want to master productivity, master discipline, and master focus, that is a journal that will help get you there in 100 days.
Yes. Awesome.
I totally love it. I love it. Yeah, John, we definitely want to be respectful of your time. Thank you for jumping on here and doing this. Where can people find out more about you? You've talked about your podcast and all that. Where can people go to find more about you and follow you more?
eofire.com is the headquarters. I got some free courses for entrepreneurs. Our income reports there. We've been publishing those for 108 months, giving you all the details of what's working and what's not in our business and our industry. And of course, like you said, the podcast, Entrepreneurs on Fire. I'd love a listen. And I'd love to know what the rest of your shirt says. A year from now, you'll wish you started today. Yes. Great way to end.
That's it. John, thank you so much. We absolutely love talking to you. Love the information, the amazing information that you brought. Thank you. We greatly appreciate
some people
you.
with it. So
thank you so much. Always great hanging out with both of you too.
thank you.
Awesome.